is a safe vaccine. No? There is no safety issue as far as this vaccine is concerned.
If we had this vaccine last year in NCR, we could have averted 42 health worker deaths and prevented 3,300 cases.
While the FDA is qualifying the efficacy of Sinovac shots on high-risk health workers, the health department stresses coronavac safety on hospital staff.
The National Immunization Technical Advisory Group has greenlit its use on medical frontliners, but it says health workers may opt out. Good evening, I'm Gretchen Ho.
And I am Robbie Alampay. You're watching The Big Story. Let's start with the National Immunization Technical Advisory Group's recommendation that China's Sinovac works just fine for medical frontliners.
It has now been reviewed and accepted by the IATF, but President Rodrigo Duterte still has the final say on the matter. Greg Gregorio with The Big Story.
China's Sinovac may not be the best vaccine for high-risk health workers. According to the Food and Drug Administration, its efficacy rate is significantly low for exposed individuals.
Ang nakita po kasi doon sa trial sa Brazil, na binigay po ito doon sa mga COVID, sa mga health workers na nagtatrabaho po sa hospital na nagtitreat ng COVID-19 ay 50.4%.
But this efficacy rate, says the health department, is not a contraindication in receiving the shots. And with the recommendation of the National Immunization Technical Advisory Group, or NITAG, and the DOH's Technical Advisory Group, or DOH-TAG, Sinovac's coronavacs will still be used on healthcare workers. Citing data from Sinovac, they say it offers full protection, especially for severe cases.
Ngayon, dun po sa usapin na ang Food and Drug Administration nga ay nakapagrekomenda na bawal. Hindi po niya sinabing bawal. 100% protection for severe disease from hospitalization, 70+% protection from moderate disease.
Add to that, the DOH tag says it does not contain allergy-causing chemical.
The evidence for Sinovac came from unpublished trials, but this has now been reviewed by different panels. And the consideration first is it is a safe vaccine.
But NITAG clarifies receiving Sinovac jabs is still voluntary.
If they are hesitant to accept this vaccine, then they can wait for the next available vaccine available. But we don't know when that will be.
In the latest Octa research survey, only 13% of respondents trust China-made vaccines.
Hindi natin ma-restore yung economy natin if we don't get ourselves vaccinated. And not just us. Other nations won't have confidence in us if we are not vaccinated.
The Interagency Task Force has approved NITAG's recommendation. They await President Rodrigo Duterte's final decision. Some 600,000 donated Sinovac shots are expected to arrive this Sunday, but the DOH has yet to finalize the list of hospitals that will receive the vaccines. For News 5, Greg Gregorio, we are One News.
To further discuss government's rollout plans, we have Maria Consorcia Lim Quizon, member of the National Immunization Technical Advisory Group, or NITAG. So the Sinovac doses will be arriving by Sunday. At this point, is there still any question as to who will be the first to receive this?
There was no question from day one. You know, number one, we said it was health workers. Now, who, particularly health workers, we said, okay, there is not enough to go around. We will prioritize the big referral hospitals for COVID. Okay, so who are the big three? These are PGH, Lung Center, Amang Rodriguez, and then the other tertiary hospitals in NCR. So there was no question about sino kaya. We have to prioritize the referral hospitals for COVID.
Okay. Now, Could you clarify for us, because a lot of people are talking about what's coming out of Brazil. They're saying there's these reports that 50% efficacy when it comes to frontline health workers, high-risk health workers. Could you clarify that for us? I mean, we already know we're not talking about safety, we're talking about efficacy, but what exactly does that mean?
Kasi we stop at 50% efficacy in preventing mild symptoms. Okay? However, it approaches 100% efficacy when in preventing moderate to severe symptoms. And that is what we want. That is what we're interested in. You know, simplihan natin, parang English. 50%, 50-50. It means maybe it can prevent mild symptoms, maybe it will not. Okay? But these are mild symptoms. We're talking about what? Trinangkaso ka ng konti. Ang mas importante is the high percentage, and it is at par with the percentages that that studies showed for the other vaccines in preventing moderate to severe symptoms.
Okay, and in the case of moderate to severe symptoms, the 100% efficacy, there is no distinction there, whether you're a part of the general public or you are with the so-called high-risk medical frontliners.
Right.
Okay.
Well, the reason why initially they were mentioning the study in Brazil is because the research population that they use in Brazil were all health workers.
I
Kaya
see.
yun yung nakukonclude nila among health workers.
Okay, maraming salamat, Dr. Quizon. That was Dr. Kongki Quizon, member of the National Immunization Technical Advisory Group. Troops may also refuse the state-sponsored Sinovac shots, but they have to shoulder the costs. AFP spokesperson Edgar Arevalo says vaccination is a must for all uniformed personnel, but they have the right to choose. But how will they go about this? The FDA has only granted emergency use authorization to 3 vaccine makers. That's Pfizer, AstraZeneca, and now Sinovac, meaning vaccines cannot be sold commercially.
As a concept, as a principle, yun po ang sinasabi natin. If they really want to opt for another brand, apart from effective na vaccine na meron na tayo na inilaan para sa ating mga sundalo, then they could exercise that option.
And this just in, President Rodrigo Duterte has signed into law the Vaccination Program Act of 2021. The law is expected to expedite the procurement and shipping of COVID-19 vaccines. It also allots 500 million pesos as indemnity fund. Recall that the arrival of vaccines via the COVAX facility had to be pushed back pending such an indemnification deal. And just 2 days before the expected arrival of Sinovac shots, the Philippines has logged its highest rise in COVID-19 cases in 4 months. Tonight's big number, 2,651. That's the number of new cases reported in the country today. That is the highest single-day increase since October 17. This brings the country's total coronavirus cases to more than 570,000, 34,000 of which are still active cases.
These are the other big stories tonight. The president has decided only the NBI has the sole authority to probe the clash between the PNP and PIDEA. Both agencies insist they coordinated prior to the operation. Due to a surge in hate crimes against Asian Americans, including Filipinos, the Foreign Affairs Department calls on the U.S. federal state authorities to ensure the community's protection. And the Agriculture Department is set to decide on a recommendation to scrap the price cap on pork altogether. The proposal to impose a standard retail price instead. Good evening, you're still watching The Big Story. I'm Gretchen Ho. Cases of hate crimes against Asians, including Filipinos, have been on the rise since the pandemic began, with some associating COVID-19 with Asian races. What's the Philippine Embassy's reaction to this? Dale De Vera tells us.
Matet has been living in America for almost a decade. She even raised a family there. But her years of peaceful living in the U.S. is now marred with fear. There has been a growing number of hate crimes in America against Asian Americans. Matet herself was a recent target during a subway commute.
I was thinking if I can sit because I was so tired, and then the lady just shouted at me, and then she told me that, "Oh, come on, you want to take a seat? Go take a seat." She's actually debating with me because of that specific location, that she's actually taking all of the space that time. So, ayaw niyang i-share yung space. Ayaw niya i-share yung space dun sa subway.
Matet says Filipinos in the U.S. should always be on alert to avoid hate and discrimination.
Hindi ako nakikipag-contact kasi ayaw nila nung titingnan mo sila. So, hindi ako nakikipag eye-to-eye contact. So, I'll just go in one corner away from the people.
Hate crimes are nothing new in the U.S., but it worsened for Asian Americans since the pandemic started. It resurfaced after a 91-year-old Asian man was caught on video being pushed to the ground in Oklahoma. Just this month, a Philem senior citizen had his face slashed with a box cutter at a New York subway. There was also the case of Angelo Quinto, a mentally ill Philem U.S. Navy veteran. According to his family, he died after a police officer who was meant to help him knelt on his neck for several minutes, asphyxiating him. The Philippine Embassy in Washington has called on authorities in America to protect Asian nationals, including Filipinos. The embassy also reminded Filipinos living there to be cautious and immediately report such attacks. For News 5, Dale De Vera, We Are One News.
President Duterte wants the PNP and PIDEA to take their hands off of the fatal missing counter case. The president said the NBI alone should handle the investigation. Patricia Mangune with the details.
The PNP and PIDEA are convinced there was proper coordination between their forces before the bungled operation on Wednesday night. They said it's possible that they were after the same target. However, an informant may have given different aliases to the same suspect.
Pag titignan namin yung operation, yung coordination, abay, magkaiba, okay ito. And then later on, kapila na pa yung nagbanggaan. So, ganun siya. Magkaibang targets namin, pero later on, kami pala yung nagbanggaan. And that's what we are trying to find out. That's the truth that we want to ferry out.
PIDEA is also not ruling out the possibility that their target set them up.
These syndicates, talagang aral na ng gusto yan. Masyadong maaga para sabihin natin, pinaglaruan agad tayo.
But former PIDEA Director General Junicio Santiago thinks otherwise. He believes there could have been lapses in coordination.
Bato mo hanapin, saan kayo nagkaroon ng butas doon sa coordination?
Santiago said the teams may have also been too excited to pursue their target that tensions escalated.
Nagbabarilan na yun, paano ko papakilala ko, isi ganito ko. But alam mo, the other party is your nag-inkwentro na, nagbarilan na, minataon na eh. Mahirap na mag-awat doon.
Though both units want to get to the bottom of the matter, President Rodrigo Duterte has decided that the NBI alone can conduct the investigation. This abolishes the PNP and PIDEA's Joint Board of Inquiry.
Nagdesisyon po ang ating presidente na tanging NBI lang po ang mag-iimbestiga doon sa putukan na nangyari sa panig ng mga kapulisan at ng PIDEA dyan po sa Quezon City. Yung mga binuo pong mga joint panel para imbestigahan yan na binuo po ng PNP at ng PIDEA ay hindi na po magtutuloy sa kanilang investigasyon. Tanging NBI lang po, sang-ayon sa ating presidente, ang magtutuloy ng investigasyon.
The PNP and the PIDEA both said they will submit to the President's decision. The PNP CIDG will soon turn over to the NBI the cops and agents involved in the incident, along with all evidence. The NBI is meanwhile confident that they can handle the case. Surigao del Norte Representative Robert Ace Barbers adds that a House committee will also launch its probe into the matter on Monday. For News 5, Patricia Mangune, We Are One News.
Not only is there confusion over the legitimacy of the PNP and PDEA operations, there are now questions over the whereabouts of the 1 million peso boodle money supposedly used in the operations. A News 5 source says the boodle money was held by Police Corporals Elvin Eric Garrido and Lauro de Guzman Jr., who both died in the bungled entrapment. The same source showed documents which suggested that the QCPD communicated with PDEA a day before the operation. PDEA also maintains that its operation was legitimate. They supposedly have a certificate of coordination to prove it.
We cannot tell whether both of us or one of us are doing the bypass because we don't have the evidence that will prove right now.
Time for an express look at some of the day's big stories. The Philippine National Police is set to use its body cameras by the end of next month. Police officers have started their training for its use. Each PNP station will be allotted 16 units each. It aims to ensure transparency and accountability in police operations. UST Faculty of Medicine and Surgery may soon hold physical classes for medical students. While awaiting the President's approval, the Commission on Higher Education and the Manila LGU have inspected the institution's facilities. UST says there won't be a student bubble and each room will only accommodate 8 students at a time. And a Filipino child may now bear the mother's surname. In its ruling, the Supreme Court allowed a certain Anacleto Balyajo Alanes III to change his name to Abdul Hamid Balyajo. While the Civil Code states that a legitimate child shall principally use the father's surname, the SC clarifies principally is not synonymous with exclusively. Time for another quick break. When we return, pork stakeholders would rather follow a standard retail price than comply with a price cap. They want the price ceiling scrapped. And Lady Gaga is putting out a $500,000 reward for the return of her French bulldogs, which were dog-napped.
Good evening, I'm Robbie Alampay. You're still watching The Big Story. Will the price cap on pork prices remain or rise? The Department of Agriculture has yet to come up with a final decision on the matter. Shaila Francisco with the story.
Despite the imposition of a price cap on pork, retailers at Murphy Market hiked prices by as much as 30 pesos.
Meron naman po kasi kaming resibo na nakalagay doon kung magkano yung puhunan namin. So yun na lang din ang ipapakita namin. Tsaka kami dito, nagkakaisa kami. Kung uhulihin nyo kami, lahat kami.
Retailers like Jenica would rather scrap the price cap altogether. This recommendation was discussed in the Agriculture Department's meeting with stakeholders. A proposal was made to instead impose a suggested retail price of 330 to 360 pesos a kilo. Violators will pay at least 5,000 peso fine and jail time of up to 15 years. Stakeholders also recommended to set the farm gate price at 220 pesos per kilo. The DA will decide on the resolution next week. But as early as now, their Consumer Affairs Department would rather increase the price cap on pork to 300 to 330 pesos a kilo.
Ang compliance niyan is nasa less than 30% lang. Kung kunti lang po nakakapag-comply. So ibig sabihin, the atmosphere ng negosyo hindi komportable. Talagang naghihirap.
Aside from transport subsidy for hog suppliers to Metro Manila, the DA also relaxed its insurance requirements for raisers affected by the African swine fever. Hog raisers welcomed the move, but said the DA should ensure they will receive timely payments.
Kung talagang gusto mong mabilis na makipag-cooperate ang ating mga traders and magbababoy, dapat mabilis ang kanilang pagbibigay ng ayuda.
Meanwhile, the price of well-milled imported rice has gone up by 2 pesos, while local premium rice increased by 1 peso based on the DA's price monitoring. But some retailers are not passing the price hike on to consumers.
Sa amin pa lang po yun, kasi mahirap magtaas. Namamahalan din yung mga tao, hindi na balik kami na yung magpalwal ba. Makatubo man lang ng konti, okay na yun.
According to the Federation of Free Farmers, aside from higher farm gate prices as harvest season nears, the increase may also be a result of world market prices. Shaila Francisco, VR1 News.
Let's take a look at the biggest stories on print and online. From Philstar.com, 113 volcanic tremors were recorded in Taal Volcano over the past 24 hours. PBOC said the volcanic tremors lasted for up to 34 minutes. Alert level 1 stays over Taal Volcano. Presidential Advisor for Entrepreneurship Joey Concepcion tells Business World Live that the private sector is eyeing another batch of vaccines. This time, it will be for micro, small, and medium enterprises or MSMEs. Concepcion says so far, US-based firm Novavax is the only one with available vaccine supply line. And this from News 5, Comelec went house to house in a bid to encourage more Filipinos to vote. Called Walka Walka, the activity hopes to draw more registrants for the upcoming polls. The group distributed voter registration forms to residents of Barangay Talipapa in Quezon City.
In world news, Britain's 94-year-old Queen Elizabeth shared her experience in getting the COVID-19 vaccine. She said it was very quick and it did not hurt. The Queen and her 99-year-old husband, who is currently in a hospital, received their vaccines last month in Windsor Castle. Queen Elizabeth also told the British public not to be selfish and to get themselves inoculated to protect others.
And now, the big stories in sports. Two Pinays are charting their own destinies, starting off with Fel-Am Chanel Molina, who is hell-bent in playing for the WNBA. Molina is a second-generation immigrant born to Filipino parents in Hawaii. She has roots in Quezon City and Ilocos Norte and is a product of the Washington State University. She's got her eyes now on making the Indiana Fever lineup after finishing her first professional league stint in Sweden. Skateboarding star Margie Didal, meanwhile, is setting her sights on the Tokyo Olympics. The Asian Games gold medalist said she is feeling confident of securing a slot despite the cancellation of qualifying tournaments. A maximum of 20 qualifiers are allowed per event. The Cebuana is ranked 14th in the world and should rank higher, with only 3 entries allowed per country in the Olympics happening in July.
Lady Gaga's dog Walker was shot while walking the pop superstar's French bulldogs. The dog sitter is now stable, but as for Gaga's pets, they were dog-napped. Lady Gaga, who is in Rome for a movie, has offered a whopping $500,000 as a reward for the return of pets Koji and Gustav. On to some happier news, Pokemon is turning 25 this February 27. This sent prices of 90s Pokemon cards soaring. Weeks ago, US first edition boxes sold for $400,000 or about 19 million pesos. This January, a single Charizard card in mint condition sold for $300,000 or nearly 15 million pesos. Who would have thought that catching them all in the 90s would be like catching gold? For News 5, MJ Marfori, we are One News.
For Filipinos out there dreaming of a career in space exploration or science, don't lose hope. 3 Filipinos have already paved the way. 3 PhilAms are part of the team behind NASA's historic landing of the Mars Perseverance rover. They are flight software engineer Genevieve Yang, lead electromagnetic compatibility engineer, I can't even pronounce their fields, Edward Gonzalez, and EDL systems engineer Gregorio Villar. Speaking to News 5, the scientists expressed hope that their success will open more possibilities for young Filipinos in space exploration.
Because I think, like you said, it would encourage the younger folk to participate in science and engineering, and I think the Philippine Space Agency will need a lot of bright people in those areas.
There's a female in the team.
Oh, and that's a good thing. We need more Filipinos in STEM.
That's good, that's good. Women in science as well.
All right, here's another thing. You don't even need to relate to being Filipino. I saw another scientist on that team. He's not Filipino, but he posted, nung nagmamatch siya nung college, bokya siya.
Nag-ano?
Sa math.
Ah, talaga?
Bokya siya sa math. Oh.
So, hindi pala indicator yon ng future mo, no?
Ang kailangan, you want it, you work hard for it,
Perseverance.
you can do it.
That's a good sign for everybody. Well, that wraps up today's big story. My name is Gretchen Ho. Catch us again on Monday at 8 p.m. on Signal Channels 8 and 250.
Please like our Facebook page, One News. For more in-depth analysis, visit our webpage, onenews.ph. I'm Robbie Alampay, and we are One News. Good evening. Happy weekend.